couple of minutes early and hopefully get home before winter. The evacuation procedure, for those who don't know it, we are not anticipating any emergency practices or drills. So if the fire alarm does sound, it will be appropriate to evacuate the building. The normal routine is we'll leave by that door there and go on to assembly point G on the car park. If for any reason we can't use that door, it'll probably be the civic suite. But believe me, follow me, I'll find a way out. Please don't just go home because we have a register. We'd hate to send a fireman into a dangerous environment unnecessarily. Perhaps the largest item on the agenda tonight is the apologies for members away on official business. So we have an apology from Councillor Wiley, who is substituted for by Councillor Smith. Apologies from Councillor Bell, who is unwell. Apologies from Councillor Fowler, who is substituted by Councillor Clues. Apologies from Councillor Humphreys, who is being substituted for by Councillor Jens. Apologies from Councillor Gosling, with Councillor O'Phillips as the substitute. And apologies from Councillor Reary, who has Councillor Jackson in there. Members, are you happy to note those substitutions? Yeah. And welcome Councillors Smith, Clues, Jens, O'Phillips and Jackson. You've probably chosen the best meeting of the year to come to because it's the lowest number of applications almost as well.
Depends how long we talk for.
Note who said that.
I'll say they're all the best, Chair.
Any disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? Councillor Ridley.
Chair, it probably doesn't surprise you that item number 5B, which is the Dordon Village Hall, has my name all over it. So I am declaring an interest in that. And if everybody would like me to leave the chamber while everybody discusses it freely, I'll be more than happy to do so.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jones.
I believe we're going to be discussing Daw Mill. It's not exactly a declaration of interest, but I am a member of the County Council Regulatory Committee. And I'm concerned that it might be under discussion now. I don't want to be seen to predetermine my position if it's discussed there. So I won't play any part in that. So,
Thank you. Any other declarations? So members, are you all happy to note those? And to both members, you're more than welcome to stay here and listen to what members have to say about your application. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes of the board held on the 7th of October. Are you all happy that I signed them as a true and accurate record?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. The first application to consider tonight is application 5A, which is number 0577, which I'm sure members you remember has been to the board on 2 occasions beforehand. Mr. Brown, anything to add to your report?
No, Mr. Chairman, just updates you from the last board. The heads of terms have now been agreed by the relevant members.
Thank you. Councillor Hayfield. Use the recommendation. Thank you. Seconded. Any other comments, members? In which case, all those in favour? And any against? Thank you very much. Application 418 for Dordon Village Hall. Mr. Brown, anything to add to your report?
Let me just show you the slides, Mr. Chairman. These are replicas of what you have on the papers. The site there at the junction, as you can see, in the centre of Dordon. And then the actual amendment is this area here, which you can see is the pitched roof on the third picture down. This pitched roof which is going on, and you can see that on the side elevation there. Nothing to add further to the report, Mr. Chairman. No other representations have been received.
Thank you. Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say these small village halls are the heart of the community. You know, this is where everything's happening, where people can get out and do things. And I'd just like to say congratulations, well done to all those that's involved into it. And I'm happy to move the recommendation to.
Thank
I
you.
would second that.
Thank you. Councillor Hayfield.
If Councillor Clues was proposing that we approve that, I'll happily second it.
Would anybody else like to
I'll
second it whilst
second
we're
it.
here? Any other comments, members? In that case, all those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 189, Sunnyview Dingle Lane. So members, you will be aware that we've considered this application twice. It came back to us for the formal agreement of the unilateral undertaking. Mr. Brown, anything to add to your report?
Just a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. As you'll see, advice was taken from our legal colleagues, and that's included in the report. The recommendation refers to a unilateral undertaking and an administrative change to that in respect of the plan conditions that were recommended to be included in that unilateral undertaking. This afternoon, that undertaking was submitted to the council. I've got no comments on that from a planning point of view, Mr. Chairman, but you may wish to take legal advice, as it's obviously a legal document, if all members take a decision.
Does our legal colleague have any comments?
No comments. I'm content with the unilateral undertaking.
Thank you. Members, any comments or proposals? Councillor Hobley?
Thank you, Chair. I think this is great. I think we've done some really good work with our legal colleagues as well to get the unilateral undertaking sorted, and I'll propose that we move the recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much. Any other comments? If not, all those in favour of the recommendation? And any against? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. But that was quicker than you thought. That's all the planning applications for this evening, but we have a tree preservation order to consider at Millfield House, Common Lane, Corley. Mr. Brown, anything to add?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman, just to confirm that we've now made the order.
Thank you very much. If you want to go, you don't have to hang around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any comments on the TPO? Councillor Hayfield?
Move it, Chairman. Second it.
Yeah.
All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Appeal update. Anything to add to your report, Mr. Brown?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Members, can that be noted?
Move.
All those in favour? Thank you very much. Agenda item 7A, Mr. Brown, for the restoration scheme at Dormill Colliery.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an extra report which was circulated on Friday afternoon. The report indicates the background to this, to be aware of the former Dormill Colliery and the big inquiry that we had about 10 years ago. That still left the restoration of the colliery unresolved, and Harworths and the County Council have been negotiating how best to take that forward. They agreed to Section 106, as you can see, earlier on this year, which was set out a series of parameters for the restoration. In other words, just the overall means as to what the restoration would look like. And Harworths were going to submit a detailed restoration scheme to the County Council, and then the County Council would decide whether it meets with the parameters as set out in the 106. So this is not a planning application. It's not being dealt with under planning legislation as such. The County Council will just have to determine whether or not the scheme which has been submitted accords with the parameters as set out in the 106 agreement. The report sets those parameters out in section 3. As you can see, the key restoration matters and the key operational matters. In terms of the actual restoration scheme, that's included as an appendix, and as you can see, it's returning it effectively to a green site. And the most important issue about that is that the rivers, the concrete will be removed, the concrete hard surfacing would all be removed. The river courses, the water courses that cross the site will be deculverted, re-wilded, and I think the term is now re-wiggled, is it, Mr. Chairman? As you can see there on the plan, a great deal of extra planting. The memorial garden would remain. and also an access to Network Rail would remain, so that they can actually maintain their assets on the railway line. The proposal would take roughly 6 years and involve the export of material from the site and the import of new material from into the site in order to carry out the restoration. As you can see from the observation section, it's highly likely the county will agree that the scheme meets the parameters. The parameters are quite general, and I've gone through those, and you can see that I too think the parameters will be met. However, there is a couple of items which I've highlighted in section 5. The first is that whilst the scheme will be restored to a green finish, that does involve the export of material so it can be recycled. Basically, the concrete will be crushed and that can be recycled elsewhere, which is what it should be done with it. And then obviously there's the import of clay and topsoils to restoration. The actual parameters plan, the restoration scheme, does not indicate the likely HGV movements associated with that import and export. I've been in touch with the County Council, as you can see from the report, Mr. Chairman, and they have supplied me with some what they consider to be the best estimate, and they reckon, based on the volumes involved, that in fact there will be 4 to 5 movements an hour over the next 6 years for this to be completed throughout the whole restoration period. The phases are roughly equal, so that there won't be a big rush at the beginning or a big rush at the end. What they're saying is it'll be evenly spread, 4 to 5 HGV movements an hour through a working day. And what the county is saying is that this was equivalent to when the colliery was open. The amount of HG movements amounted to that, or if not less than that. And also this is for a temporary period for 6 years. So that's what the council is saying in respect of that. The second issue was the longer term maintenance and management of the site. The county have come back to say that Harworth have said quite simply that they will restore the site. There's a 5-year aftercare clause. They won't commit to anything after that 5 years. That's something for the county to take up, and from my point of view, I think that needs to be clarified as what's going to happen in perpetuity to the site, rather than just leave it as to what might happen at the end of the restoration after 5 years. So the recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is that you may or may not wish to highlight those. Given what I've said tonight, that's entirely up to you, Mr. Chairman, and the board.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Members, I should might take the opportunity to tell you I had a conversation earlier on with the chairman of Overwood Whittaker Parish Council, who, and had we been able to have public speaking, would have assured you that the parish council and the local community are in support of this restoration. Any comments, members? Councillor Hayfield and then Councillor Dervick.
I think a few years ago, we were in the heat of battle with Harworth over this. There'll be cheers around the room at this recommendation. It was something that we were all pressing for at the time. We've had in the intervening years a period of quiet when there's just nothing going on the site. We've got used to that. I think the lorry movements, I have to accept what they are. I'd be interested to know more about the routes that might be looked at for those, and therefore potential impact on surrounding settlements, those lorry movements. And 5 years does seem a long time on these things, but in the history of the site and everything else, it's perhaps not so bad. And if anything else was going to be going on that site, if Harworth had come back with other proposals to put houses or anything else on, there'd have been a similar need to clear the site of concrete and bits and pieces. So I think having the difficulty is we've got used to nothing happening and the quiet of nothing happening. But if something is going to happen to that site, I would personally, I would prefer it to be going back to Greenbelt. And yes, deculverting the stream so that it floods and everything else, and you get with that. So personally, I would be encouraging the county council to support this, but I would like to know more about what the potential traffic impacts would be on surrounding settlements with these forecast lorry movements.
Thank you. Councillor Dewar.
Thank you. My comments largely are the same as the ones that we've just heard. I welcome that this is at last going to be restored. But I am very worried about the impact of the traffic on the local communities. And I think we do need more detail of where those journeys are going to. If this was a planning application, which I accept it isn't, we would be able to have a transport plan for this project. And I think we should be given the courtesy of having that again for this. And I also believe that the county council should try and get more information about why that rail link cannot be used to take some of this spoil away and bring new materials in. Part of this is to allow access to the rail line there for maintenance. So it is there, it is working. And this would seem to be a necessary development that should be squeezed into the transport along that line. So that the number of lorries coming out of and going into that site is reduced. It's all very well to say that it's the same number of lorry loads, traffic movements as when the pit was open. But there's a lot more traffic on the roads around there now already. So to add these in, I think, is not in the best interests of the communities around there. I do accept that this is a project that needs to go forward, but I think we should be asking these questions quite forcefully to try and get further information and try to influence that for the benefit of our communities. Thank you.
Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Chair. I am just really echoing what's been said by both councillors really. I do think we need more information on the traffic routes. It's all very well saying 4 to 5 per hour, but 4 to 5 on top of the high level that are already coming through some of the villages and local areas. I think it'd be good to have some more information about the traffic routes and the impacts that potentially could have on the surrounding villages.
I know I shouldn't come back, and I just say that I accept that this isn't a planning permission. So we actually have no legal right to ask for these, but I think we should be asking for them anyway, and keeping our fingers crossed that we can actually get a result. As far as I understand it, this agreement predates all of the planning legislation that is relevant to this. And we really don't have any control over it, which is a powerless, it is an unacceptable position, but that is where we are. And I think we've just got to do our best.
As I understand the position, Councillor Dewar, this is detail, if you will, following an act of Parliament.
Yeah.
Parliament essentially granted consent, or rather Parliament didn't. Parliament in the 90s imposed retrospective conditions on the application of the colliery, one of which was that there would be a restoration. And that is now what is happening.
Yeah.
In their wisdom,
and
Parliament didn't say you had an opportunity to consider traffic.
The time is very, very short. If we don't get a response in now,
I think the
we're
county
going to
council
miss the
had,
boat.
the county council had 20 or 20
I
working
thought it
days
was 20
to
days,
consider.
and we've got to get this in
Yeah.
14, so
So,
that's why it is here tonight.
also, look, members, my view, and I will ask for some guidance on it, but I think the question before you is pretty closed tonight. We have an opportunity to be consulted by the county council effectively on does the restoration scheme as set out meet the requirements of the restoration scheme. No more than that. And the guidance that the officers are giving you is that it does. Now, I think there's absolutely no reason why you can't ask for more information from the county council, but they are not obliged to follow that, and the applicant is not obliged to do more in that area than what they have submitted, I think. And also that sounds fairly blunt, but I think that's where we're at. Mr. Brown, anything to add?
That's quite correct, Mr. Chairman. All the county council will be doing is does this restoration scheme meet the parameters set out in the 106? The parameters do not refer to traffic numbers. They do not refer to traffic routing. They do not refer to construction hours or anything of that nature. So it's up to the county council as to whether or not they would follow through on those with Harworth, but they're not obliged to do so.
Any legal guidance?
No, I agree with comments that yourself and Mr Brown expect.
So, members, I think it's entirely reasonable to ask those questions. But that's probably as far as it goes. Councillor Biddle.
Sorry, Chair, I'm just thinking through this. Can I just ask Mr Brown a technical question, really? I really
We
want.
might get a technical answer.
I do hope so, and I'll mull it over. Effectively, it's great that the restoration is going ahead. However, under the new NPPF guidelines, would this then make this back to green belt, or does it put it in that grey belt category?
First of all, Mr. Chairman, it is green belt now. It always has been green belt. It just happens to be a colliery in the green belt. So at the moment, it is green belt. At the moment, in terms of the prospective NPPF, we'll have to wait and see what the government actually says when it actually responds to the consultation that's been undertaken and what the definition of grey belt would then be. I don't know how the outcome of that is, and I can't advise on that, Mr. Chairman. We'll have to wait and see what the definition is in the new NPPF. But it may be that this someone to define this or include this within the definition of grey belt. Yes.
And clearly, I can't say either because I don't know what the government will come up with. But my instinct is it would probably be grey belt now when restored. Probably not grey belt because it will be restored to countryside. But do you have any thoughts on that? No? Councillor Aitken?
Maybe just to sort of move us on a bit, I'm not clear what the recommendation is, but what you appear to be suggesting was that we accept, or we don't object, we accept what the county council is likely to do on this, but we take the opportunity to at least ask the questions over routing for lorries and things. I'm accepting the fact that they don't have to give us an answer, but I think surrounding communities will be very pleased to hear an answer. Well, maybe some of them will be pleased, and maybe some of them won't be pleased. But so,
Is that
I'll
what you're
second whatever you
proposing?
said.
I didn't know anything. I'm
You said
being
something,
independent. So I take it, Councillor Hill, you're proposing that the recommendation to the board is that we raise no objection, but we do ask the county council to consider the two areas of concern. That
Very happily, you're putting words in my mouth, Chairman, and I agree.
Very wise, you members. Did it without moving my hands. Any other comments? Are we all happy with that as a recommendation? So we raise no objection, but aside from that, we ask for county council to consider those issues. Can I see all those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Members of the public, that concludes the open session of the council meeting. So we now need to move into private session to discuss some highly confidential papers. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So members, I now need to move that in accordance with section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, that it's in the public interest that the public interest be excluded from the remaining items on the agenda on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by section 12A of the Act.
Second.
All those in favour? Thank you very much.